All right, we're going to go ahead and get started today. Thank you everyone for joining us. And my name is Chris Isbell with Martin & Associates. Today we're going to be showing you what's new in Acumatica 2023 R1. Just a reminder, in case you are new to Acumatica, they have 2 releases per year, usually around October and April. So this is covering the most recent release from the spring, again, 2023 R1. And before I hand it over to Tom, our presenter today, just a few housekeeping items. First, this presentation is being recorded, and after the webinar, link will be sent out to you in the next couple of days. If you have any questions during the webinar, please use the Zoom chat or Q&A buttons to ask those questions. Either one is fine. And based on the question, we'll either answer that if it's quite, pertinent to what's being discussed, or we'll answer it at the end of the demo. So ask away. And that's it for the housekeeping. So joining us today is Tom Ferris with Martin & Associates. He's going to be showing you all about some great new features in Acumatica 2023 R1. Thanks, Tom.
Excellent. Thank you, Chris. Appreciate that. Teeing things up. Thanks, everybody. Appreciate the opportunity to take you through Acumatica 2023 R1, some of its new features. So in addition, of course, getting to know some of the new features and investments that Acumatica has made in either new enhancements or enhancements to existing features. We hope that you come away with a few other bits of value, including obviously some of the reasons to stay current, which the Acumatica license encourages anyways, but more than just their enforcement of staying current is the fact that, to Chris's point, this publisher is constantly investing in improvements to existing features and adding new features to broaden things for really the range of uses that we're going to kind of talk about for the highlights there. Keep in mind too that this might encourage you to take advantage, if you haven't previously, of the 90-day sandbox, which is free. Each time one of these major releases comes out, if you are a SaaS customer of Acumatica. If you are not a SaaS customer, then of course the Martin Associates team is here to help you and or your IT department stand up a sandbox to evaluate what it's like to go through an upgrade process, which can be the click of a button or may actually require more significant testing. Lastly, we hope that you come away with maybe some ideas about leveraging what you already have in your current version, let alone subsequent versions of Acumatica, as we look at some of these features. We have a diverse audience today, so we are going to cover a fairly diverse set of functions, including eCommerce, distribution, which is at inventory management at its core, but certainly purchasing and sales and shipping optimization. We are going to briefly cover a couple of manufacturing topics. We will delve into the financial core, AP, GL, banking, AR, for some general usability enhancements that Acumatica has put there. We've got a couple features in sales and CRM, pipeline management, and some general platform enhancements that are not terribly technical, but truly practical to talk about. Sorry, let's advance that. So very briefly, you will hear me reference Acumatica Open University as one of many resources that Acumatica makes available, in addition to us at Martin Associates, for learning about these new features or learning about existing features. So can't overemphasize the value of Acumatica Open University. It's something that consultants like myself and Chris access on at least a weekly basis for content, just to keep ourselves updated on functionality. And we're ready for the demo. So let's do away with PowerPoint and hop on in. All right, let's make sure I got that refreshed and ready to go. Yep. Okay. So we're going to begin with some e-commerce topics. And so I'm going to come down here into the commerce functionality or workspace. And first, we'll start with the importing of refunds for partially shipped orders from Shopify. So this category is Acumatica does not produce an e-commerce platform, but they have aligned very closely with these two. BigCommerce for really kind of mid-market, fairly high functionality store or multi-store e-commerce needs. Shopify is a little bit simpler to work with, a little less functionality than BigCommerce. So there's a range of e-commerce platforms that Acumatica has aligned with. Again, with Acumatica ideally being the ERP and the source of record for what do we sell? How much do we sell it for? The images themselves, all that can be managed in Acumatica and then pushed to the stores for consumption by the end customer. Let's take a look at the Shopify store record. Now, my demo system doesn't have any stores aligned to it, but we can invoke the form and kind of dive into this piece and highlight one component. Previous versions of Acumatica prior to 2023 R1, you either processed a complete refund or you didn't. And now Acumatica is supporting partial, basically refunds for a partially shipped order. In other words, they ordered 7 things. We successfully shipped 4 of them, and the remaining 3 that needs to be refunded. Shopify, of course, can do that. The interface to Acumatica to record exactly the fact that of 7 items ordered, 4 have shipped, and the remaining 3 will not ship and should be refunded. Because that's, in Acumatica, that's a sales order that is partially shipped. And the interface, the integration between the two has been enhanced to support refunding on partially shipped orders. Okay, moving along. Next would be to take a quick look at the order settings tab. And this is a new section. This is mapping what your Shopify store or stores consider a location to Acumatica's distribution module, warehouse, and the bins or locations within it. Mapping of Shopify locations to Acumatica ERP warehouses is up next. Cool. Let's switch over to Shopify's big brother competitor, BigCommerce, with a few more features. And we'll take a look at the entity settings here to kind of talk about, I actually meant to visit, this will work. Let's go to the actual entities. A significant list of entities available in BigCommerce. You can see that the list is a little bit larger. BigCommerce, for example, supports template item mapping. So template items or matrixed items are, I'll pull up a visual example. That's probably the easiest way to drive that point home. But this is a matrix of stock items or non-stock items that are arranged into a group, and synchronizing that management of a large set of SKUs in both Acumatica, again, the inventory source of record, with the BigCommerce store has been extended. Previously, and Chris knows as well, we've had to actually do some workarounds for a large set of stock items that were arranged into a matrix under a template item, and now that synchronization is supported. And I'll pull that up just in case we want to cover template items in a subsequent call. Of course, Martin Associates, we're hoping that this discussion generates questions that we can help you with. So of course, we look forward to any follow-ups that we can't cover in today's Q&A. So the template items is one extension to BigCommerce. The other is BigCommerce meta fields, aka user-defined fields. In Acumatica, those are mapped as custom entities. So this list of entities right now, these are all Acumatica objects, shipment records, refunds, sales orders themselves. But if there are custom fields that you create over in BigCommerce, we can teach Acumatica about them as attributes under this entities extension. All right. I did have a side visit to the template items just to kind of drive home what is a template item or a matrixed item. If we look at our item creation, what we're really talking about is creating multiple SKUs from the intersection of attributes. So a distributor who sells resistors, for example, can basically set up attributes that describe resistor features like ohms cross-tabbed against watts. And then you just check the boxes or grab all of these and hit go and actually create a matrix of items. So the SKUs follow a pattern of their identity, and then the appropriate attributes that kind of power that description, and synchronizing this matrixed item with the e-commerce store means that the end user experience is, I'm going to the resistor page, and then I'm going to select the appropriate ohms and or wattage. And what's really happening is I'm drilling down to a particular SKU that I do or do not stock or have a certain quantity of. So that's a quick side trip to matrix items and or template items. They're kind of referred to by both, and the fact that we can synchronize them with BigCommerce. The last e-commerce topic that we have to visit here is actually in the sales order module, and that's right, I was going to take us to the sales order types. Okay, let's get to that. So when tax calculation is done by the e-commerce store, it's redundant for Acumatica to recalculate taxes when the order comes down from BigCommerce or Shopify into Acumatica. And so we used to have to do some workarounds, but with 2023 R1, we can simply come here and disable automatic tax calculation by Acumatica for a given order type, where this is the order type. In this case, we are synchronizing down from Shopify into Acumatica. Tax is already calculated. In fact, they actually come sweeping into Acumatica. Don't recalculate them against either the native tax tables in Acumatica or Avalara or Vertex tax calculation. So just turn it off as necessary. Doesn't mean you don't have Avalara functioning for calls that are taken by a customer service rep over the phone rather than to the e-commerce portal. All right. That was a quick tour of e-commerce functionality expansions or enhancements by Acumatica. If Chris doesn't have any comments, then I will move on to the next topic, distribution. And there, on distribution, we're going to start with Acumatica modifying the carrier integration with FedEx. Oh, I'm going to read that. Again, this list that we're going through, oops, sorry about that, is not comprehensive. There are many other additions. So I'll visit this carrier functionality, and then I'll kind of call up the list in case others want to kind of validate this list or explore it on their own outside of this call. Basically, this one is about the fact that the FedEx to Acumatica API has been upgraded to leverage REST, R-E-S-T, basically API methodology. And so even in my demo system, it's basically saying you're defaulting to the old one. It's time to update to the REST-based carrier API. And so that's going to be speed, flexibility, easier to make modifications to it, just because it's a more modern architecture for the API with FedEx. And this, if you are not in distribution, this is really about having Acumatica as you prepare a pick, pack, and ship process for goods that are going to go out on a parcel to UPS, having Acumatica prepare This is package dimensions, weight, quantities, volume, etc. And the packages I'm putting them in. What are the FedEx rates? And that's an API call out to FedEx for rate calculation, as well as obviously getting a printing label from FedEx dropped into Acumatica so we can print it on the packages. All right. Next distribution topic is the set of predefined user roles. But before we go there, I'm going to do this. In your Acumatica instance, if it's current and you type in release notes, you can pull up this list of the features, and I'm going through some of them. There's the predefined import scenarios for importing matrix items and template items. But this list is also available out on the web. If you go to help.acumatica.com, regardless of what version you are on, and you do the same, release notes, you will be brought to this publicly accessible list of Acumatica 2023 R1 new features. Okay, so this resource is available to everybody, whether you're on 2023 R1 or not. Okay, so I'll just leave that tab up there. Next, all right, our predefined user roles. So let's go take a look at the user security. And we're going to look at user roles. We're also going to look at access rights by role. Yep. Okay. That's fine. All right. So if I start typing in sales order, SO, we'll see that Acumatica has finally what they had done already for accounts payable, accounts receivable, fixed assets, is address a number of distribution modules, aka purchases and sales orders, and prescribe or build some predefined user roles. And if you're not terribly familiar with Acumatica's user role structure, it typically goes from the bottom up in like a pyramid that's narrowing to the top, saying a significant number of people might need read-only access to sales orders in those forms. Next would be a fairly broad audience that needs limited access to sales order functions. In this case, we would grant the sales order clerk user role to them. A smaller group might need access to some of the more advanced kind of management functions within that module. And then finally, at the top of the pyramid, okay, maybe one or two persons in your organization should actually have full access to all of the settings, including the governing parameters of the sales order module. All right, so to kind of drive that home, let's take a quick peek at one of those user roles and kind of understand, like, so the question would really be, so how do I apply this role of, say, sales order clerk? Our access rights, Acumatica's access rights by role form allows us to see kind of a high level which modules are impacted. Obviously, since this pertains to, per its description, limited access to sales order functions. Well, what do they really mean by that? We can come down here into the sales order node and click on it and get a feel for what has been granted. So obviously, this role can interact with the blanket sales order form. Okay, good. But the setting is view only for carrier boxes. Those are the actual physical dimensions of the volume and weight capacity of the boxes that are aligned with integrated carriers like FedEx and UPS. This role is not permitted to tinker with those settings. They just have view-only access to them. All right, so that's a quick preview of user roles, and Acumatica invested in taking the purchasing workspace and kind of carving it up, very similar to the sales order workspace. All right. Moving on to other enhancements. The receipting of really, I'm sorry, this is really pertains to like a counter sale or a cash sale. Acumatica extended the sales order types. We were there previously, but let's get back to that. My favorites list sales order types. There's a brand new sales order type of 2023 R1 called a mixed order. I don't really have time on this to go through a detailed demo, but what this mixed order does for a cash or a counter sale is say, what is the net outcome of this transaction? If the customer is returning goods and they're purchasing something new simultaneously, Acumatica will calculate the net and basically quietly take care of issuing out that which you are selling them, receiving in that which they are returning, and producing one AR document that is the net of those two. Either they owe us money on the net or we owe them money on the net. And it will produce one AR document that reflects the combination of items being returned. And if you're familiar with the sales order entry form, you're basically putting in a negative quantity in the quantity field, saying they are returning 5 of these and they're buying 17 of those. And on the net, we should charge them the resulting balance. So a very nice efficiency gain for counter sales with the mixed order type. And you want a detailed demo of that? Chris and I are, of course, happy to oblige. I didn't have any additional distribution topics, so I'm going to move next on to manufacturing features, unless there are questions. Okay. Acumatica spent quite a bit of energy with this last release, enhancing the workflows and usability of a number of manufacturing features. First, we're going to start with kind of side panel management. Let's take a look at, and so if you're not in manufacturing, what you'd be drawing here from here really is the presence of side panels. This is a very small sample of side panel extensions that Acumatica has made both to forms and to inquiries. This is a generic inquiry. It's returning a whole bunch of records. From a given row highlighted, we can invoke a side panel to kind of delve into the details. So that's one type of side panel, is generic inquiry to seeing the underlying details behind that row without having to click into the record. All right, so it's one side panel. What I want to drive home is actually something quite different. Let's do it the other way around. Sending. Sorry, sending. I have a particular production order that's kind of midway. So the second side panel example I really want to drive home is where I'm on a given form and I'm perhaps bridging to additional data on other forms simultaneously rather than having to navigate to something else. In this case, this is the production order maintenance. It's kind of like a high-level dashboard for a production order, setting up expectations like, I plan to spend this much labor, I plan to issue this much material, I plan to produce finished goods in total at a unit cost of this, right? And then we move through releasing of materials and creating operational moves. Previously in Acumatica, invoking the production detail form that kind of blows up the bill of material that's been invoked was a click away, and you had to have like 2 monitors or something like that, or you're going back and forth between tabs. So to give us a preview of this functionality, and Acumatica is going to keep extending things like this in subsequent builds, but this one's really nice. This production order is governed by a bill of material, and to just preview us, what is that bill of material doing? It's basically saying, I got one operation where I pull these materials, and then I have like a final assembly or a QA, and it consumes a few materials. All right, so that's a bill of material that's been invoked, this production order, and then it comes to life once we release it, and then start releasing materials. But if I have a modification to this, I can do this now. With the side panel option, allows me to pull up the production order details view of that same production order. It's basically the bill of materials kind of come to life, and maybe I have to make a change. So I can put this on hold and come down here and say, nope, The bill of materials is not correct for this one. We actually need 3 of this particular base unit for this particular build. Having made that edit, we'll take it off of hold and refresh our screen. And now when I release materials, my new updated quantity that was relevant, it was basically 3 per, 1 per, and 2 per, and I'm building 10 units. So I've updated what my material wizard is prompting me to issue to the production order by really kind of editing this particular copy of the bill of materials on the fly. And I didn't have to do it on 2 screens. I could actually just come here. This is the old invitation, is to pivot by screen from one view to the other. And now Acumatica is allowing us to split the screen and kind of keep the master production order maintenance form open while I modify the underlying details in a split screen side panel. All right, so that's one quick run through of one enhancement. That's the production order details to production order maintenance side panel. And you have the inverse. If you're on the production order details screen, you can pull up the production order maintenance for its totals and attributes and blow-by-blow event management. Okay. The other enhancement that Acumatica put in here is they are continuing to extend their state diagram. It's present on a number of CRM forms, AP forms, and now it's present here on the production order maintenance. What is the show state diagram, or a workflow? It's basically a visual representation of why is this document in the status of released? Well, it had to meet certain conditions. And then once it's in a release status, what are the actions that we can take? Those are all known and displayed here. And you can make modifications to this. You can customize this workflow and just type in the name of a customization project. This is, of course, if you have access to the customization user role. And you can basically say, I'm going to make a variation of this workflow and change under what conditions it is eligible for release, eligible for close, eligible to be completed, and make modifications to this. And again, this this state diagram and the ability to customize workflows is on a few dozen forms in Acumatica, and with 2023 R1, they just added it to the manufacturing production order maintenance form. Okay, and again, that's going to affect things like this. When I call up the ellipsis of other actions I could take, we can see Acumatica graying things out. Like if it's already off of hold, the removing hold button makes no sense to light up. Instead, what's available to me is to put it on hold, right? And then if this conditionally will light back up when the inverse is true. You are capable of modifying that behavior through this show state diagram and customizing workflows. There's even a course for this. So I mentioned at the beginning that we talked about Acumatica Open University a little bit. So let's go there real quick. Acumatica Open University, kind of drive this home. I should be signed in. Yep. And I want help with workflows. There we go. Brand new course Acumatica launched. W150 workflows. So you can learn all about this feature if you have the interest and or the resources. Now, of course, Martin Associates, we stay abreast of all of these functions and enhancements and training opportunities ourselves. But just to, again, to drive home, you could be taking these things on by yourself with Acumatica, with Martin Associates' assistance, or simply lean on us completely. That's totally up to you. Just want to remind us of as an Acumatica customer, or even a prospect, you actually have access to this. This is publicly accessible. You don't have to be a client or a customer licensee of Acumatica to access this content. All right. We made it through 2 out of 3 things I want to show in manufacturing. Very quick visit to some MRP enhancements. So good old MRP that's helping us with purchase prompts, manufacturing prompts, warehouse to warehouse transfer prompts, queuing up purchase orders and such. When this refreshes overnight, it can dramatically change things. If a new forecast has been loaded, if safety stock or reorder points have been updated by distribution, MRP display might reveal very different results. Acumatica has added a few historical reports that are querying what MRP did. So this allows an administrator who's monitoring ERP for the purposes of manufacturing, purchasing, inventory controls between warehouses to understand what's driving MRP. How many records are being fed into it, and do we have some dramatic change? So MRP history, it's not the most exciting thing, but if you are in material requirements planning, it is really nice to have these new history. We used to have to kind of do some kind of crazy back-end SQL querying to get to it, and Acumatica has gone and produced some of these reports. So nice for monitoring manufacturing. That's all I had with respect to manufacturing to kind of keep us on pace. We're going to take a look at some general usability functions that Acumatica added into the kind of financial core. But we are going first to an employee record to get a feel for Acumatica's enhancements to approval maps. Let's get to, well, I have it right in my favorite, so we'll just go into employee record. All right, so if you're familiar with, say, routing an AP bill or purchase order or a sales order for that matter through one or multi-level approvals at your organization, when someone goes on vacation, that map is really not all that terribly valuable. Well, Acumatica added the ability to delegate a particular either expense claim and receipt approval and or approval of documents like AP bills. You can basically say, if I'm going to be on vacation, then I'm going to have, in this case, Bill Owens cover me until I return to the office next week. So that will allow documents that are naturally routed by an approval map to me as the approver or as part of a work group of approver. This will enable, in this case, Bill Owens to also see that on his list of documents for approval, and he can approve on my behalf at least until early July. All right, so pretty nice enhancement there. The other level of enhancement that Acumatica added was on the assignment and approval maps themselves. I was going to have us look at the AP bill multi-line approval example in the system. So again, if you're not familiar with approval maps, basically we can add, conditions and rules that say, I want to collect one or multiple levels of approval based on a variety of conditions between departments that the document originates from, the total cumulative value of the document, etc. What Acumatica added here is if I want to route this particular approval to a key employee and or a work group that employee is part of, and they might have some peers who can approve. If I want to make it also available for in this case, the employee owner to specifically delegate it to a particular person at the document level, not for a time period like we saw in the employee record, where I have a vacation or PTO delegation, but specific persons that they want to route the approval to instead of themselves, you can enable that. So again, more flexibility in approval. These rules are fantastic, but they can be very rigorous. And when there are exceptions, Acumatica added a couple of nice features to help get around those. All right, that's kind of part one of kind of some general finance enhancements. Next up is getting along with your bank and communicating with them for ACH disbursements. And some modernization to the ACH plugin. Yeah, that's right. I was going to go to the payment method. Okay, so for a payment method, there they are: pay by check, cash. The ACH feature of actually building a file that you could upload to your bank's terminal or portal to designate dispersal of one or multiple payments to a variety of vendors for a variety of applications was previously built exclusively on an export scenario back in the integration module, where it's got instructions to build the file, the .txt, the NOTCHA compliant ACH file. With this release, Acumatica has made it possible to have that be a more dynamic code-based plugin that actually creates the file. This makes it easier for Acumatica to keep up with the banking industry and make modifications to this. Let's see, you might not have caught that, in that you'll watch two additional columns as well as a tab open up that allow for a little bit more control. This will actually displace some customers who actually have needed customizations. There are some third-party extensions to the ACH plugin or the ACH processing in Acumatica that have been necessary in the past, including certain banks requiring control types and default values. And now Acumatica has kind of brought that native into the banking module. So a nice enhancement to sending an ACH instruction set to your bank for disbursements. Next up, in general enhancements, if we pop into, say, accounts payable, Acumatica has relabeled a number of documents just to streamline things. This button used to be called the quick check, and to kind of drive home what a quick check, now called a cash purchase, to just make it a little bit more. In other words, they kind of invented quick check, when instead really across many industries it's just called a cash purchase. So that's what they called the function. So if we go take a look at one of those really quick to kind of drive home, because you don't use these. Again, it's for a cash purchase. So 2329 was an example I put together. So what's a cash purchase? I'm buying something from a vendor. This might be applicable for, say, a petty cash scenario that I've actually, I want to record the fact that I purchased printing services and I paid for them with petty cash. I don't really need an AP bill to which I apply a payment record, and to have two records, I can get it all done at once. And so, the GL transaction behind a cash purchase is, let's sort that. I am crediting the cash account, and I am debiting, in this case, a tax, and then the expense account. Okay, so you don't need two documents to get to that net. And in other words, you're cutting out the accounts payable accrual or liability account middleman. Just come straight to it. Most importantly, it's really just Acumatica has changed in accounts payable and accounts receivable a number of document types, and just made them a little bit more clear about their label. All right. Next up would be a few enhancements to sales and CRM. Well, let's take a look. I believe that I have that setting in my favorites. Yeah. Okay, so this is an example of report building or form building. So this is, we have parameters to help manage our pipeline. And I know I have a little bit richer data, so bear with me here. Let's go back to January 2022 and our sample data. There we go. It's a little better looking. This is basically Acumatica building out additional reports in the past through either Acumatica Report Designer or queries, or using an extension like Relixo, or building some dashboards from scratch. We had to kind of amend Acumatica's out-of-the-box reporting functionality for sales opportunities. And here's Acumatica leaning in and actually just kind of building out some forms for us. And then this too is extended with the side panel. So if I highlight a given row, like last December, where I actually can see some volume, we can see a breakdown in this case by salesperson. So who's contributing? So more important than I think Acumatica kind of catching up to this, I wanted to kind of drive home the ease with which these types of reports and even dashboards can be built from this data. The idea that analysis ideally is taking place in Acumatica and not having to drop things out to Excel to pivot tables therein. In other words, with just a click of a button, I can see this line item broken down by the two contributing salespersons. And then when I'm done with that, I can just hide that and move on to the next analysis activity. All right. The last item that I had queued up for us is a platform enhancement that really kind of shows a cloud application continue to mature and become easier to modify right from the UI. So let's see, what did I say? We're going to go take a look at the security preferences form. Okay. And I guess they're going to put that on there. Okay. There we go. Get to use the universal search myself. Hadn't put I missed the favorite on where my security preferences was. What I wanted to drive home is this setting that's kind of buried right here in the middle. In the past, as an administrator of Acumatica, if you wanted to change the user inactivity timeout, and by default, Acumatica comes out of the box, or used to come out of the box with a 15-minute timeout for a given user. You sit here with a single browser or multiple browser tabs open, and if none of those browser tabs result in any input from the user, Acumatica will kick you out after 15 minutes. And some organizations love that, and other organizations said, no, I don't want my people kicked out until an 8-hour day has expired. We used to have to put in a ticket with Acumatica to have them change the underlying server setting, basically the web.config file. And now Acumatica allows you to come in here and just change it yourself. So you don't have to contact Martin Associates. You can manage this on a tenant by tenant basis. So if you have multiple tenants, and the production tenant should be more rigorous about kicking people out due to inactivity, but a test tenant should be more liberal. Cool. You can set that up. So again, the software often has some server level settings, and Acumatica is bringing those features right into the UI, allowing you, the customer, to make those modifications as you see fit. All right. That was my kind of run through of content that I'd intended to show and kind of highlight. Again, reminders that we'll send this recording afterwards. That help.acumatica.com is just a few clicks away to review a whole bunch of additional features. This is actually the entire help menu, in addition to this release notes, available at help.acumatica.com. And can't stress enough the value of Acumatica Open University. The fact that it's available, it's free, and you don't have to even be an Acumatica customer to take advantage of it. I am not seeing any notes in the QA or in the chat, so I'm going to propose that we give you back a little bit more of your day. So with that, I'm going to kind of pull up the, I want to get to here, sorry. The thank you slide, and say, Martin Associates, we really appreciate the time that each of you guys took to get to know Acumatica 2023 a little bit more. We hope you found this valuable, and we look forward to any questions or follow-ups that you might have. Thank you very much for your time. Appreciate it.